Once again, we started our diet in the dumbest way possible.
Welcome to Crocs in the Kitchen. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Brian. As you may remember from our very first video, we started our diet off by eating nothing but baked potatoes for 2 weeks. The reason why we did that, as we explained in the previous video, which you can find in the links below, was that I watched a podcast with Kevin Smith who talked about having a heart attack and then doing something drastic to change his health. But he learned what he did from Penn Jillette, the magician of Penn and Teller, and we read his book and decided to go off in that direction. So we decided that we were going to do more of an informational video today to give you some information, things that we learned by eating nothing but potatoes for 2 weeks.
The first question when we decided we were going to do this and we told people, like I told my mom, the first question I got was, is that really healthy to eat nothing but potatoes for 2 weeks? Isn't that going to be just so unhealthy? Potatoes aren't really that healthy anyway, are they? And on and on and on. So my response to that was, and my thinking was, do I think that eating nothing but potatoes for 2 weeks is a sound medical thing to do? No, it's not.
It isn't.
It's not. It's just flat out not. Like, it's not a good idea. But we had been so overweight for so many years. We've both struggled with this for basically our entire lives. Mm-hmm. And being the weights that we were at, were not healthy. That was not healthy either. And so if the alternate is us being that fat for that much longer, or maybe being a little unhealthy for 2 weeks and eating nothing but potatoes, but getting skinnier in the future, then for me it was worth it. So I kind of had a way, we had nothing to lose by doing this. Like, we couldn't possibly get any less healthy by doing this because we were already so unhealthy and so obese and overweight. So that's kind of how I responded to people who asked that question.
So you may ask yourself, what did this actually accomplish by us doing this? And I gotta say that the one thing it really proved was that we actually do have the willpower to change our lives. We have the ability to eat potatoes for 2 weeks. Like we said, we wouldn't suggest it, but we developed the will to accomplish this. And it wasn't an easy road. It was very difficult for us to do, but we overcame it. And it proved in my mind that I could stay on a path that wasn't the previous path that I was on, the easy path.
Yeah, I think in my head, I just kept thinking that it put us to the point where we were like so deep into and invested in this new life that it was like, okay, we just did that. We're not going to go back on this now. Like, if we do, then we're going to have to figure something else out. And that, honestly, those 2 weeks were probably like the 2 hardest weeks of my life that I've ever been through.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. A
common phrase in our house is actually, I ate potatoes for 2 weeks. It is basically like a finalized statement. Mm-hmm. You know how somebody could be like, oh, you want to go and you want to climb this mountain, somewhere in like Colorado. And then your response is, I climbed Everest. That's the way this feels like. We did the 2 weeks of potatoes and we accomplished a great feat in our minds. Now, to other people, it may not be that difficult.
It put us over the edge. We're like, okay, we're not turning back now. And the other thing that I think it did was it started to teach me, at least during the process, I started thinking the whole thing of eat to live, it kind of before didn't really have a meaning to me. But now when we were eating the potatoes, it was, if you eat these potatoes in front of you, they're not going to taste good. They're going to taste horrible. Like, they're plain potatoes. They taste horrible. They
nothing
do not
added,
taste good.
Nothing taken away.
They don't
just
taste
potatoes.
They don't taste good. You knew it was going to taste bad. You knew it was even going to make you gag because that's the point we got to. But you also knew that it was going to nourish your body. It was going to give your body what it needed to keep going on and the energy and everything like that. And so it taught me that I don't have to love everything I eat. Before we started this, when I ate, I almost was like seeking out what was the most tasty thing I could possibly eat, and I wanted it to taste good. We spent a lot of time agonizing over like, where do we want to go for dinner? Because it's like, oh, every meal has to be so great and awesome and tasty and everything. And so you start learning that it's not about eating to love everything you eat. It's about eating to live. And that statement actually is very powerful. And
eating to fuel your body, and that's it.
Yeah, and so you have to almost separate your mind from your body when you're eating sometimes, because everything cannot be the most enjoyable meal ever. That's just not the way it is.
Yeah. But on top of that, it actually did make all the other food taste a lot better. If you remember in the first video, we showed me eating corn, and it was like just pure heaven in food form. And there was no butter on it. There was no salt. It was literally just boiled corn. And it was amazing. And it was something so simple and so pure of a flavor that I couldn't help but just almost break down crying after that. Now, mind you, I hadn't eaten anything other than potatoes for 2 weeks, but it was just a life-changing kind of experience to actually taste that food the way that it naturally tastes.
Yeah, I was eating like a baby carrot and some no salt added salsa that first day, and it was just everything.
That salsa smelled amazing.
Everything just tasted better, and it kind of led, our new lifestyle. We're eating so many different things that we would have never eaten before, that we would have eaten before, but covered in butter and oil and everything like that. And everything just tastes better now. I feel like my mind and my palate has actually been opened, and I eat more of a variety now.
Yes, a lot more variety of foods.
Even though everyone's like, wow, what you do is so restrictive. It doesn't feel restrictive. After 2 weeks of potatoes, nothing feels restrictive.
Yeah. When you base everything down to a mono diet, anything beyond that feels like a vast improvement. And so going from the potatoes to the nutritarian diet turned out to be super easy. And we've been able to maintain it all these months afterwards. And honestly, I have zero desire to change the way that I am eating.
Yeah. We wanted to touch a bit, because we get people asking us all the time about what we've done. So we wanted to give a few tips. If you're going to do what we did, which is incredibly stupid.
Yes.
If you're going to do it, we wanted to give you some tips. So the first thing I would say is consult your doctor.
Yeah, because we didn't.
We didn't.
And I'm normally a reckless type person for the most part. Just ask Jessica how I drive. And even I thought that I should have talked to somebody about it. So there is that. On a side note, a friend of mine is actually a doctor, and I did tell her what I was doing, and her first response was, why?
Well, that's the thing. I think if you do consult a doctor, and one of the reasons I didn't tell my doctor is because it's like your doctor is probably going to tell you not to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the struggle I have in my head is like consult a doctor, but at the same time your doctor will probably tell you not to do it. But at least it's better to have your doctor aware that you're in this realm, and like, I would have felt better because I do have struggle from a lot of anxiety, and I had a lot of anxiety those first 2 weeks over like, is this really gonna ruin me? Like, is this gonna what's gonna happen to my body just from these 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So definitely consult a doctor.
So the other thing that you want to do if you decide to do this is make sure that you conserve your energy, because you will run out of it very, very quickly. You will wake up in the morning, you will eat, and then you will crash 3 hours later. And I'm not talking like, oh man, I could really go for like something to eat, because what you're going to eat isn't going to be good anyway. So you end up going through this cycle throughout the day of eating every 3 hours just so you don't feel absolutely horrendous. Because when I mean you crash, like it is a hard crash. It's like 3 hours, you're going, and then and you're done if you don't eat anything. Yeah. And that was one of the hardest things that we learned throughout those 2 weeks, is that you basically have to eat every 3 hours, and you have to sleep a lot after the fact, because you've got zero energy.
So I had a little bit of travel experience during my 2 weeks, and trying to travel and eat nothing but potatoes is an interesting thing. On the day we drove back, I thought we were going to be home a lot earlier than we really were, so I didn't actually have enough potatoes for the whole trip. So the other tip is make sure that wherever you're traveling, there's a Wendy's nearby. Mm-hmm. Because Wendy's is one of the only restaurants that sells a plain, nothing added baked potato. Like, they don't add anything, salt, oil, anything to the outside. It will taste disgusting.
As most potatoes do.
But it will be what you need for your potato time.
I figured I might give some good cooking tips for if you decide to do this. Mainly, plan ahead. Cook ahead of time. Make sure that you've got potatoes already cooked out. Don't just like cook for every single meal, because when you crash, it's gonna suck. And you really don't want to cook after that, and then you're going to reach for something that you probably shouldn't eat in the first place. So cook ahead. We used to cook like all of our potatoes the night before. That is another thing though. Cook your potatoes and then refrigerate them. I don't know why, but for some reason they will taste way better if you cook them and then refrigerate them. And then if you heat them back up again, they're better. But I actually sometimes would just eat them cold because they were sort of denser and actually had a better texture. Another thing is try multiple varieties of potatoes and find out what you actually like. Yeah. The other thing was, on our diet, we could eat sweet potatoes. And so generally at night, I would have a sweet potato. Now let me tell you, the liquid will cook up out of the holes that you poked, and they will caramelize on top. And then when you like cut open the potato and you eat it, it tastes like pie. It's amazing. See, I loved it. And I still think about that.
But the thing was, everyone's like, oh, you can eat sweet potatoes? That's a game changer. I honestly couldn't eat sweet potatoes. Yes. I had them for the first few days, and they just became too sweet for me. Yeah. With nothing added to them. It was too sickly sweet for me, and I just couldn't. And I'm like the biggest sweets person in the whole world. Mm-hmm. So like, for me to say something's too, I don't think I'd ever literally said in my head, like, there's some people, like, we watch a lot of YouTube videos and they're like, oh, this is too sweet. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, that's not a thing. Those sweet potatoes, they were too sweet for me, and it made me sick just to eat them.
I really liked the sweet potatoes, but I after a while, even they got to be just like a drain, and I stopped making them.
But the last tip that I was thinking of, if you are going to do this, you have to have a partner. Yeah. Because
doing this by yourself, you probably won't have the motivation.
There's no way we would have made it. Like, if you watch our first video, we had quite a few meltdowns, but the days he would have meltdowns were like my good days, and the days I would have meltdowns were his good days. So it worked. It kind of balanced out. I don't know how, but those bad days that he had, I was able to help him pull through, and vice versa, and it just made all the difference. There's no way I could have done this without Brian.
There's no way I could have done it without her. I would have caved the first night. Yeah. Guaranteed.
Yeah. But anyway. So moving on, we want to touch base on, would we do this again? That's the big question.
Yeah, we get asked that sometimes, and it's.
I always tell people, like, I would never recommend anybody to do this just because it sucks. It's horrible. It's the worst.
For me personally, I would never do what we did again. I would never eat just plain baked potatoes for 2 weeks. And I mean, yes, it did work for what we did, but at the same time, I think that I would follow more so Mary's Mini, which is another 2-week program of a mono diet, but it's a mono diet that allows you to add condiments to things. And so,
would have been a game changer.
Which would have made our lives a lot easier to do. So it's like when you can add salt and pepper and salsa and like that kind of stuff to it, like it would have made it far easier for us to do.
But do you think it would have made it as successful?
I don't think it would have. But then again, we were doing something to drastically change our lives, and we weren't doing something just to sort of reset our bodies.
Yeah, I think we needed this. Like, I wouldn't recommend anybody to do it just because it sucks, but there are some people like us, like, who need something that drastic just to change their life. And this did change our life. And it takes a lot of willpower. It takes a lot of dedication. You have to really want it.
Yeah, but make no doubt about it, it is torture to do what we did for 2 weeks. And I'm not saying that to be sort of grandiose or whatever. Like, no, I mean, it is literally a definition of torture. You take away flavorful food to inmates and you make them suffer. Because when everything tastes bland and horrible, life takes on less meaning.
Yeah.
And so it literally is a method of torture. So I do not recommend anybody actually doing this unless you are extremely hardcore about it and just want to do what we did and climb a mountain.
Yeah. So I guess the last part would be, do we think we'd be here now if we hadn't done this? And so we touched on it a little bit about moderation, and Penn Jillette talks about it a lot in his book and in different interviews he's done. And it's like, moderation doesn't work for us. So doing something, counting calories and trying to control portion sizes, we've done that. We've lost weight that worked before in the past. We know it works to lose weight. Yeah. But what happened was it leaves so much room for error. It leaves, we still have cheese in our fridge then. And even if it's low-fat cheese and I'm only allowed to eat 120 calories of it a day, that is still accessible to me. And I don't have the self-control in that situation to avoid it. And so moderation just didn't work for us. Like eating the same stuff, but in moderation did not work. We struggled for years. And so I think when we started this, it was kind of sad because we were like, well, we're not going to be able to eat this stuff again. And that's sad because food is such a big part of us and everything we do and traveling. But we found now that there's other food out there, and it's more fun.
We've broadened our food horizons even by doing this. Yeah,
it's fun to travel and try to, like, as a challenge. Like, I went to Vegas with my mom, and I stuck to pretty much my diet the entire time. And, did I have to do some really weird things, like eat collard green wrapped thing of vegetables while my mom was eating an In-N-Out burger next to me? But, I love that. I love those things because it's again, reinforcing that willpower. I love it when people bring baked goods to the office and, like, just put these spreads of cookies in front of me. And I'm just like, I'm not going to have it. Like, I'm not going to do it. Anyway, back on track a little bit. I feel like we needed the drastic change to force us to do something different. And so, would it have worked if we hadn't done the potatoes? I don't think so.
Not likely, because we would have been frustrated with what we were eating. As anybody knows, on the nutritarian diet, one of the top things that everybody says when they start it is, man, this food is really bland.
Yeah.
And it takes a good while to naturally change to that type of eating. But for us, we ended up doing it very quickly in 2 weeks, completely reset everything, and then we were able to then eat the nutritarian diet without too many issues. Yeah, you had a few issues for the first couple of weeks.
I almost bailed on the whole nutritarian thing in the first few days, and I was just like, you know what, I'll go back to the counting calories, whatever. But the thing that stuck back in my head was, I just ate 2 weeks of potatoes.
Yep.
I can't fail myself after this. Like, if I can't lose weight this way, and I've done that, like, I've been through that, but I still can't get back on track, then I'm hopeless. Yeah. And so I had that sticking in my head. The fact that we put all the pain and suffering attached to the potato thing instead of the nutritarian thing, I think is a game changer for us.
The way I've explained it to many people is that if you go down really, really low on something, any step up from there is an improvement.
Yeah.
And so if we went from our normal diet to the nutritarian diet, it would feel like a step down in flavor, in the complexity of the diet and that kind of stuff. It's like, but instead we drop down to potatoes, we come up to all of these other vegetables.
Yeah.
And that's what made it simple. This diet has been super easy for me. And I can't express that in any other way. People always ask me, they're like, has it been hard to do this? No.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, other than the first few weeks of, like, just trying to figure out what it was we were supposed to eat and, like, all the logistics, And that's why we wanted to make this channel, because we want people to know that this is easy.
Yeah.
You can get over that hump. Like, I know in your brain right now, it does not seem like you can get over that hump. And we were in the same place. But you actually can. And we're living proof, 220 pounds lost between the two of us. It does work, and it can work, and you can be in a better place physically, mentally.
Yeah.
It is possible. And so that's why we wanted to start this channel, to sort of simplify things and help other people to figure out their way.
You too can lose weight. You just may not want to do it with 2 weeks of potatoes to begin with. But
that is up to you.
But thank you very much for watching this episode of Crocs in the Kitchen. I know this was pretty much just a straightforward talk with us, but we felt that it needed to be done because we are constantly asked questions by friends and family, loved ones, co-workers, you name it. We get asked 1,000 questions. And anytime we tell somebody what we did, they ask us more and more questions. And we figured this was a simple way to let any of our viewers know that, look, this is what we did, this is what we learned, and you can do it. We suggest that you do not, but you can. It is possible to do it, and you can change your life like we did. And now, after all of the weight that I've lost and all the weight that she's lost, we constantly are getting asked questions now about, how did you do this?
Yeah.
How did you lose weight? What's this thing that you're doing to actually lose weight? Yeah. So hopefully this gives you some type of insight into what you could expect, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of knowledge and wisdom about the stupidity of what we did.
Yes. And also, if you have any other questions, because I'm sure
while
we're talking, questions have come up, please feel free to put them in the comments below, and we will definitely make sure to read and respond to every single one of those questions. So just let us know, and hopefully we can help you. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up.
Yes.
And
subscribe,
yes.
Click the notification bell, and also find us on all of our social media platforms, because we will interact with anybody who contacts us on there as well.
All right, well,
I think that's all we got.
I think that's it. I know this one's been a little bit longer, but hopefully you guys stuck with us, and thanks for watching Crocs in the Kitchen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.